We are ready to begin. Welcome, a warm welcome to all of you. It is such a pleasure to have so many people here tonight. I know there are some folks who could not arrive on time, and they'll be coming throughout the evening, and we want to welcome them as well. I'm glad we have a little space left. My name is John Olson, and I am the treasurer of the Friends of the Kirkbride. And I want to extend a warm welcome to each of you. Thank you for coming to this very important evening, our gathering, Rally for the Kirkbride. I have a kind of a extensive introduction that I'm going to plow through this evening, so bear with me, okay? Can everybody hear me okay? In the back? All right. Well, as you probably know, Friends of the Kirkbride is a grassroots group which began in 2005. And as it says on the Friends of the Kirkbride Facebook page, we are dedicated to saving, preserving, and rehabilitating the former Fergus Falls Regional Treatment Center, which is, if you have not seen it, you can go out the doors tonight and just wander your way up the hill a little bit, and you will take a peek at it in the evening light. While there are many of us who feel that the Kirkbride complex has great potential to aid economic growth and development in Fergus Falls and Otter Tail County. And that's why we're here tonight. We do not want to see that incredible building demolished. That's why it's important that you're here this evening. By your presence here tonight, you also are a friend of the Kirkbride. You are part of this great effort to save this national treasure. So thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your willingness to take part in this worthy cause. If you've had a chance to glance at the agenda that you were handed tonight, you maybe noticed that we're here for some very specific reasons. Tonight we plan to hear a little about some of the past efforts to preserve the Kirkbride. We're going to hear about some current initiatives that are being worked on. We're going to talk about the most important things that we can do right now to save the Kirkbride from demolition. And at the end of the evening, we're going to form some task forces that will help organize and unify our efforts. And at the end of the evening, we'll ask you to volunteer for one or a couple of these task forces, and you see them at the end of the agenda that is printed. I'd like to mention them just briefly right now so you have a little time to think about a way that you might want to involve yourself as a volunteer with Friends of the Kirkbride. These task forces, first, there's going to be a fundraising task force that will help secure funds for many things, one of them being what may likely be a prolonged and expensive legal battle. We'll also hear more about that in a minute from some of our panelists. Second, we have a Spread the Word task force that will work at getting the word out about the city's plan for demolition and how that is the wrong decision for this community. The Spread the Word task force may be involved with handing out flyers, signs in the yards, or door knocking, things like that. And third, there's going to be a task force for a Kirkbride review. Review being spelled R-E-V-U-E. This task force would work on a large gathering this spring that will raise awareness about the Kirkbride. And this large gathering may include entertainment and fundraising, speakers, and food. If that interests you, think about that. And fourth, there's a task force that will be involved with an appeal to the city council. And that task force will be doing a few things, one of them being lining up speakers and supporters at the city council meetings. We'll say a bit more about these task forces at the end of the evening. I simply draw your attention to them now so you have a little time to think about how you might want to be involved. What else? As I mentioned earlier, since you are here tonight to help save the Kirkbride from demolition, you are a friend of the Kirkbride. And as a friend of the Kirkbride, you might like to know who's involved with some of the work that takes place behind the scenes. So let me introduce a few people to you. I'll begin with the Friends of the Kirkbride officers. Lori Mullen is serving as president of Friends of the Kirkbride. Will you wave, Lori, please? Thank you. Lori Lucking will be serving as vice president. She is not here tonight. She is in Hawaii. Lucky her. I will be serving as the treasurer, and we have members at large as additional directors. Mayanna Preble. I was close.
No, you were right on.
Okay. Mayanna is working with communications on our board of directors. Scott Kavami, who is right here, will you wave as well? And I should have had Mayanna wave as well. Scott was one of the organizers of tonight's rally along with myself. And then we have a member at large, also a longtime friend of the Kirkbride, Glenn Rosentrader, who is sitting back there waving his hat. Many of you actively follow our Friends of the Kirkbride Facebook page. If you are not following it and you're on Facebook, you might want to look us up. I'd like to introduce our administrators of the Facebook page. We have 3 of them. Will you raise your hand when I mention your name? Jean Schmidt, go ahead, Jean. Aaron Allgwire. Aaron, where are you? Aaron, come in. In addition to being a Facebook administrator, Aaron also is handling the PayPal sales of the Kirkbride items. So thank you, Aaron, for that as well, in addition to a lot of other things. And another Facebook administrator is Christy Halstengard. Christy is here in the front row. In tonight's panel, we have a couple of people who have put in many years of hard work, long hours, and truly blood, sweat, and tears to keep the wrecking ball away from the Kirkbride. Lauren Mullen, the president of the Friends of the Kirkbride, was one of our panelists. She'll be talking in a little bit. Chris Scholke is unable to be here tonight. He is the executive director of the Otter Tail County Historical Society. And then we also have on our panel Maxine Schmidt. Maxine, will you wave? Maxine is affectionately known around the town and the state as that Kirkbride lady because they know her from the many tours that she and her husband Gene. They toured many people through the Kirkbride, and they see Maxine around town or someplace in the area and they say, I know you. And then it dawns on them, you're that Kirkbride lady. So that is her title for her official title here with Friends of the Kirkbride. Gene and Maxine have done a lot of work to keep the Kirkbride intact, and we thank them very much for everything all of their efforts and all that they've done. There are many others helping with tonight's rally. I want to say a word of thanks to our hosts, Sean Byer and Michelle Tweed. They handed out the agendas as you came in the door and greeted you. Thank you both. Also to Tim Litt, a friend of the Kirkbride, who is filming tonight for PEG Access. Tim, thank you. And thank you. And Christy Halstengard again. She is broadcasting the rally live on Facebook. So thank you as well. There are a lot of other people who have been involved and are involved with Friends of the Kirkbride, and some are helping again here tonight. But I just want to say a word of thanks to all of them, everybody who has helped with this effort, many in this room as well. Grateful for what you have done. Some housekeeping items. We are grateful to the county for allowing us to meet here tonight. Please note that there is no smoking in the building or on the grounds, and there's no wandering the halls. We want to respect these policies and be good guests, so thank you for that. There's a sale table as you walked in tonight. Items that are for sale are t-shirts, Kirkbride t-shirts, pins, and magnets. Aaron Allgwire and Margene Newton are sitting at that table, and Marcella as well, correct? I forget who was all at the table. There's also a donation box on the table, and I encourage you to be generous if you are able. Again, funds are needed for many things: printing costs, newspaper ads, and also impending legal action. So we ask you to be generous with your donations. And finally, I just want to say a word of thanks to all of you for turning out tonight. You took time out of your busy lives to be here, and we are grateful for that. Thank you. And I want to say that not only is this a really good turnout from Fergus Falls and the surrounding community, But we have friends of the Kirkbride who have come here from Fargo. We've got more than a couple of carloads of folks that have come up from Minneapolis. We have an individual who flew in today from New Jersey specifically for this rally. Yeah, we can apply. And where are you? I haven't met you yet. Thank you. Thank you for your presence here tonight, for all the encouragement and support and advice that these folks bring to the table. We also want to say a word of thanks to those who are watching our live broadcast of this rally online. We're grateful that you can be with us in that way. There are people from all over our nation, actually, all over the United States who are interested in tonight's rally and who are watching this gathering and are supporting us in their own ways, even from a distance, and we're grateful for that. As you can see, the Kirkbride is truly a national treasure. It really is. And it means something to Fergus Falls, but it also means something to the rest of our country. Thousands of us know the value of the Kirkbride complex. We love its unique beauty, and we also see the potential that it has to boost our economy and create jobs right here in our city. We view this building as an asset, right? Not a liability. And that's why we're here tonight, and we'll continue to fight the plan for demolition proposed by our city council. Tonight we stand together, united, with one purpose, committed to save the Kirkbride. So thank you for being a part of this effort. I'm going to turn it over to Scott Kovani. Thank you.
Again, thanks to all of you for coming out tonight. I'm going to try and use a few pictures. I don't have a lot, but I have a few. And it just helps me if I've got some pictures to go by. And sometimes hopefully it'll be helpful for you as well. John mentioned, and as you're aware, our purpose in wanting to do this. The first question that comes up, well, why do this? Why go through this effort? We're all volunteers, you know. Why do this? And it's because of the potential economic development that this effort can bring to this town and this area. But we also want to respect the history. That's an important factor of this. There's 100 years of history here, and this is something that can't just be thrown in the landfill. And I believe that it falls under the category of stewardship. We need to be good stewards of the assets, of the resources that we have here. And demolishing the Kirkbride does not demonstrate good stewardship of something that is very valuable. When you've got an asset, you don't seek to destroy it. You seek to develop it. And that's what we're all about. Now, the city has taken a different approach. They're looking to tear it down. And the couple things that I'll have to say about that, let me first go to one of my favorite authors and people in general, C.S. Lewis. Oh, I skipped a picture. C.S. Lewis once said, "You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." And I think that applies. This building isn't too old. It's not too old, and we're not too old to dream a new dream for it. Last year, the plans that the city was working on and had been working on over the years, in the spring, they came to the point of deciding on a 4-phased approach to trying to deal with this complex. And this was the map that was developed, and you can see the different colors there. Their phased approach was going to take down sections of it at a time to try and get it to what was considered a manageable size. The assumption being that it was not manageable as it is. I believe it is manageable. We believe that it is manageable as it is. And tearing it down to make it manageable isn't the approach that we would recommend. We would recommend doing it on paper and making it possible to work on pieces of it simply by doing the paperwork to deed things properly and to separate ownership in such ways that it can be managed in pieces without tearing it down. But you can see here the yellow was the first phase. Let's see, which was, red was going to be the second phase, green is the third, And then, what's the last one?
Blue?
No, I'm sorry, green was the fourth, blue was the third. Kind of working in from the outside was how it was presented. So with that in mind, last year, hundreds of thousands of dollars were spent to upgrade the sewer systems and water systems. You maybe saw some of for the people that are in the area, saw some equipment moving around up here, and there was, a few $100,000 more spent on making this place ready for whatever it would be developed into. And then some months went by, and the council made a different decision and chose to pursue demolish the whole thing. Along the way, though, this first phase of the demolition was approved. And the yellow that you see here is that first phase that includes the administration building, a garage, and the incinerator on the backside, and then all of the tunnels and 3 of the gazebos. So that's what's in progress right now. The bids were put out, and the award was given to Landry to come in and begin that demolition, and they've actually begun as of just this week. As an organization, as the Friends of the Kirkbride, we haven't taken a strong stand against this particular phase of demolition, although there are some specific pieces of this that frankly don't make any sense. The claims that everything is either dangerous or so dilapidated that it can't be used are frankly not true. There are portions that are maybe not so great down in the tunnels. There are some tunnel sections that have water in them and that the walls aren't secure. But there are a lot of tunnel stretches that are perfectly fine. The administration building is something that doesn't really match or seem to fit with the rest of the architecture of the building. It was added in the 60s, and there isn't really anybody beating the drum to try and save that particular building. That's that number 2 building right there on the front. These other 2 buildings, the garage back here, and then this is the incinerator here. The incinerator, most of it is already gone, so it's just the remaining bits of that, or the remaining part of that building that needs to go. The garage isn't hurting anything. It would make a great staging area for any redevelopment work, so I'm not exactly sure why that was chosen to be demolished. And then as far as the other things, there's a gazebo over here, there's another gazebo over there, and then there's a gazebo inside. So we got 1, 2, 3 gazebos. Those have been pretty popular with photographers and people that come for the tours, and for some reason those were deemed worthless as well. So that's the phase that is currently happening, and will likely be finished by this spring. If you go online, you can look at the Fergus Falls website, and the map that I just showed is on that website on this page, as well as other information. And among the things that are on there is a diagram, or not, a dialogue. That's not the right word either. I'll think of it. It's a page with words. Page with words looks like this. And it's kind of a short history that the city put together to kind of describe the current situation. And it goes through what has been done recently and what they're planning to do with the money that they've got and what they're planning to do with the money that they're asking for. You see here the $8.9 million request that is referenced here is that's the current effort for the demolition of most of the rest of the building. Back in 2007, the city got some more money to use just for holding costs. A little over $1 million, and there's a little over $200,000 of that still in the bank in the city. And of the original $7 million or so that were granted by the state, after this phase 1 is completed, there'll still be about $500,000 of that money left for the city to do something with. And I already talked about that. The city has put together this flyer, and this is the flyer that you will see going down to the state that they're going to be using to promote their request for the $8.9 million to demolish the building. In the pink there, you see the map that shows what's going to be demolished. The green is what's going to remain. The green is the center tower building. And from our point of view, when we talk about the Kirkbride, we're talking about a building that has 3 towers. There's a tower on the west end, and there's a tower on the east end, and there's a tower in the center. Now the tower in the center with the really nice cream-colored brick and the really photogenic front lawn and everything makes it on the front page a lot, and that's a terrific picture. But the reality is this building consists of a lot more than just that central tower. And the plan to use the $8 million to tear it all down would include everything you see there. One of the reasons that is brought up from the city as to why do this, if it is such an asset, if it is something that is so valuable, why do this? And it seems that there's this fear that somehow it's going to cost the city a great deal of money, that it's going to put the taxpayers of the city on the hook, and this is going to be a real drag on the community. By their own numbers, their estimated cost of maintenance right now is only about $50,000 a year. There is no heat in the building, there's no utilities to speak of, so it's essentially mowing the lawn, providing some security. There hasn't been and isn't really any significant maintenance cost coming from the city's pockets. Most of the work, in fact, all of the expensive work that's been done, including the sewer and water, the roof repairs, and other things that have done with doors and security that way, that's been paid for with the money that was granted by the state. So it hasn't been a big cost to the city, and we don't feel it will be a big cost to the city, because once it's developed, it's going to be a revenue-producing source for the city, and that's the direction that we see this going. What do I have next? Oh, this was from last year. We were getting a little press in the Wall Street Journal as an arts haven. I thought that was pretty interesting.
And they're gonna use gazebo, yeah.
Yeah. This one's just released, was it just yesterday? Was this just printed? It's just this week. High Plains Reader, front page. Star Tribune. This is a story about another hospital down in Anoka that has been revitalized and is opened as a veterans housing site. Lori's going to talk a little bit more about some other things that have been done and can be done, but I mean, just as a couple of examples, this was just in yesterday's Star Tribune, and this particular one I thought was really interesting. Down in Rochester, there's a campus that is way, way, way bigger than this that IBM's got. And a company came and bought the whole thing and is going to revitalize that. When you say that something can't be done, in my view, if you can't imagine it, if you can't see it, if you can't do it, well, that doesn't mean it can't be done. That doesn't mean it can't be imagined. And that certainly doesn't mean it can't be seen by somebody else that has that imagination and that ability to do what you can't do. Last, I guess I'd like to say, as far as the council's approach on this, one of the other statements that's been made is, well, we've done all we can. And this is a statement that really is a puzzler for me. And I know that I know several of the council members, and I know a lot of the people that work for the city, and frankly, a lot of them are hardworking people that are trying to do their jobs, and they really are trying to serve the city well, and I applaud them for that. But to make a statement that we've done all we can, when it's absolutely impossible to know that, just really is sort of a silly thing to me. In a way, it's an embarrassing thing to me for the city of Fergus Falls, because there's no way to know if you've done all you can. When you're dead, then you've done all you can. But if you can still kick, there's still something you can do. And I just think it's the wrong way to phrase what they're trying to do, and to try and sell what they're trying to do. And with that, another one of my favorite guys, Albert Einstein. He once said, people love chopping wood, and this activity one immediately sees results. And one of the things that in the work that I've done, I've done things that you can work and work and work on, and nothing really shows, you know. Somebody like John can spend hours writing a sermon or writing a speech, and then when you get it, there's the evidence. Sometimes you can do a lot of work, maybe on your house, where you've got to sand the drywall in a new installation, and you put mud on, and you sand some more, you put mud on, and you sand some more. It looks like, man, it just looks the same as it did yesterday. Sometimes it's fun to do something where there's really big results that you can see. That's why I kind of like what he has to say here. And I think that big results are what we're looking for here with the Kirkbride. Another fun thing that he said was, to invent, you need a good imagination and a pile of junk. Now, a lot of people think what we've got here is a pile of junk, and maybe some of the pictures that have been shown of the tunnels or some ratty spot in the back corner somewhere make it appear to be, you know, a pile of junk. But the reality is this is not a pile of junk. This is something that with a little imagination and a little perseverance could really become something terrific. I'm going to let the real experts talk now. And Lori and Maxine have been fighting this fight and have been involved with the Friends of the Kirkbride for years. Frankly, if it wasn't for Maxine, the Friends of the Kirkbride wouldn't exist, and we'd all be home eating pizza or something tonight. So Maxine, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you share a little bit of your thoughts on this, all right?
Thank you, Scott.
So I'm going to put this to...
I've got a lot to live up to now. Don't I?
I'll have that in the background for you.
Okay. I am Maxine Schmidt, that Kirkbride lady, as Scott said, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of that title, and that's okay. I don't mind. My journey to save the Kirkbride began in the fall of 2004 after attending a meeting of community members that was held on the campus of the Kirkbride to talk about the future use of this soon-to-be vacant building. There were many ideas discussed, and I left that meeting feeling pretty confident that a reuse would soon be found. Then the master plan appeared to tear it down and build a new school on the grounds. And I kept saying to myself, somebody needs to do something. Somebody needs to do something. Why would you tear it down? Just look at it. Just look at it. Finally, the light bulb went off, and I thought, maybe that somebody is me. I had no idea what I was getting into. I began a petition drive, and that petition drive said, I strongly oppose the demolition of the Regional Treatment Center campus. The commanding presence of these buildings has unexhausted economic worth. I support preserving this unique historic landmark that has helped shape the community of Fergus Falls. I conned my sister into going with me that weekend, and we took this petition out to restaurants, grocery stores, gas stations, any place where a lot of people gathered. And people were more than willing to sign that petition. That first weekend, we gathered almost 500 signatures. And I presented those petitions to the City Council in February of 2005. And they're probably still in a drawer somewhere in City Hall, I don't know. Other people joined in the fight at that point, and that began the Friends of the Kirkbride. As people continued to sign the petition, they started to ask, could we see the inside of it? It's gorgeous from the outside, but I'd love to see the inside. I simply went up to talk to the site manager at the Kirkbride building and asked if we could give tours. They said, absolutely. So, that began the tours, and they have been going on for many years. The purpose of our tours has always been twofold. One, to raise awareness of this beautiful building, the asset it is in Fergus Falls, and to educate people educate people on what took place in the building and the care and treatment of mentally ill people. Word of the tour spread, pictures were shared, and demand grew for our 2-hour tours. This building became a tourist destination, folks. We have had more than 13,200 people take our tour. By the way, that's more than what the population of Fergus Falls was. Okay? They have come from 43 states and 10 countries. At the time, we were at 9 countries on one of our tours. I gave the list of countries, and a little girl raised her hand and she said, "You can add one more. I'm from Ireland." So those 10 countries are Australia, Canada, Ecuador, England, France, Ireland, Norway, Poland, Scotland, and Sweden. There may have been many more that we don't know about, because as part of our mini tours for Summerfest, we know we had people from all over, and I know other people have had people in there too from other countries. So that's, my statement is not true, but that's what I know about it. People go to Europe to look at castles. We've got one right over here. And people want to come and see it. I still occasionally get calls asking about the tours, and I have to say, I'm sorry. So we have been privileged to see the eyes light up, the jaws drop, as people not only see the outside of this building, but the inside of this stunning, awesome, amazing castle on the hill right here in Fergus Falls. Tours during Summerfest, we have had hundreds and thousands of people come. And people came to Summerfest to Fergus Falls simply because they wanted to take the tour. Sure, they took in the other activities, but the tour was high on their list of things they wanted to do. In addition to the regular Friday tours, many special tours have been given to groups such as, and this is a long list, public health nurses, social workers, child protection workers, group home employees, former RTC employees, economic development groups, developers, business groups and staff, service clubs, movie people, photographers, MS tram riders, Boys and Girl Scouts, 4-H clubs, Red Hat ladies, church groups, school reunions, book clubs, homemakers, family groups, even an RV club came up here in their RVs and took a special tour at one time. Red Hat ladies, church groups, oops, I said that already. Excuse me, I wrote it and so I wouldn't make all kinds of mistakes, and I did it anyway. School groups, many special tours for school groups. Teachers would call every year and say, can we take another tour because we've got another class of kids. So we accommodated them as much as we could, from elementary age to college classes. And the elementary kids have really enjoyed the tours as well. They love to see the history of it. And one thing they especially loved was there was a phone booth in the Kirkbride building. And kids nowadays, of course, don't know what a phone booth is. So they always had fun with that. Media tours, we've done many of those, newspaper and TV. And a lot of these tourists, most of them, also stayed in our motels, they ate in our restaurants, they filled their vehicles with gas, they purchased things in our other little stores in town, and this helped the economy of Fergus Falls. This was a tourist destination, and still is. Our last tour was in November of 2015, began in 2005, they were ended in 2015. We expected to start again in the spring of 2016, and we kept waiting for the city to give us permission, which never came. We asked them specifically, can we give tours during Summerfest? They were an abbreviated mini tour. We were not allowed to do that either. And they, would no longer allow the tours because of air quality issues, even though I also pointed out to them at a council meeting one night that their own consultant study that did the air quality tests, that report said the tower building could have had tours in it. Okay? This Kirkbride building and grounds can be restored and redeveloped in phases, and the opportunities are endless. On our tours, we would ask people, what do you think this could become? Lots and lots of ideas. Veterans Reintegration Facility with horse and dog therapy. That sounds like a great idea. You know, the Veterans Home is right next door to the Kirkbride on former State Hospital land. A mental hospital museum, school, college, data center, wellness center and spa, winery, brewery, bakery, offices, retail shops and boutiques, clean tech, small manufacturing, and I used to tease people, there could be a hobby shop rental for restoring cars, building canoes, woodworking. You know, my wife won't let me do it in the garage. Maybe I could rent a spot. Apartments, hotel, bed and breakfast, restaurants, photography studios, dance studios, artist lofts, and studios. The opportunities are endless. We also wanted all of the green space in front saved for a green park into perpetuity. And wouldn't it be wonderful to have our walk of flags coming all the way up this curved area? Wouldn't that be gorgeous? Our visionary city leaders in the 1880s played a major role in the selection of Fergus Falls as the site of the third state hospital for the mentally ill in Minnesota. This meant a huge economic boost for Fergus Falls, and it remained a major employer for well over 100 years. Renovation and rehabilitation, not demolition or deconstruction, will respect the long history of the Fergus Falls State Hospital Regional Treatment Center and will bring much needed jobs and economic growth. Our state and our city leaders need to recognize the high value of the Kirkbride as the economic opportunity it was in the 1880s, and it can be again. This is about more than just a building. It's about the future of Fergus Falls. Landmarks give us a sense of identity, and I'm going to quote Erin Bird from Preservation Alliance of Minnesota. She said, "Preservation is sustainability. It conserves financial, cultural, and natural resources. It is reinvestment. It creates a legacy." The manager of a demolition company that took down a similar Kirkbride in Danvers, Massachusetts a number of years ago said, "When I first saw this building, I fell in love with it. Now, without the building, it's just a place like any other." I'm going to read that again. "When I first saw this place, I fell in love with it. Now, without the building, it's just a place like any other." Let's not let that happen here, folks. Let's not let that happen here. Historic preservation is not easy, and it's been called the 3 P's, as in Papa. First one is perseverance. I'm still standing here. Second one is passion, and I think you know that we have a lot of passion for this place. The third and the hardest one is patience, but we're still not going away. And I'm going to close with a quote from Winston Churchill. "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." What are we? What is the city of Fergus Falls? Let's do this. We can do it.
Well, I'm Lori Mullen, and I don't know what else can be said here. I think that everybody else has just about covered it. So, over the last couple months, we've really added a lot of followers on our Facebook page, and there's many people that are supportive of our efforts. One of the questions that's been asked is, okay, so the Friends have been around since 2004, really got geared up in 2005, here we are, 2018. What have you guys been doing? Well, We lighted the tower, folks. That was the Friends of the Kirkbride. We have always believed that this was a unique asset and deserved to find adaptive reuse. I had a friend call me today. Matter of fact, I was on the phone most of the day. Called me from the cities today, and they were at a seminar, and this person was being asked, tell us about the Kirkbride. What's happening with the Kirkbride? When you leave town, that's what people ask you. They don't ask us about the river in Fergus. And you've seen the newspaper articles that somehow have almost decided to pit the downtown against the people that want to save the Kirkbride. There's room for both. It doesn't have to be an either or. We have this masterpiece in this community. Smaller communities are looking to figure out how they even thrive. We have this. We have something unique, something different than any other community. This can be a destination. If we take this down, then the destination goes away. So some people thought that we were just preservationists. We just wanted to have an empty building standing there, and we have never, ever had those thoughts. We have always thought that this could be an economic engine in this community again. Preservation Alliance Minnesota in 2011 came and did a presentation in Fergus, and that was when the Minnesota's tax credits were introduced. They could show that with every dollar invested in historic buildings, there was a $10 rate of return. We can do that here too. Well, what else did the Friends do? Well, we've had it listed on the most endangered properties in Minnesota twice. We did presentations for Preservation Alliance Minnesota down in the cities at the soap factory. We were the ones that were responsible for saving the other 5 brick buildings at the 11th hour. We had developers in town that were supposed to be there for RFP overview on the main tower. However, we said, here's these other brick buildings that need to be saved, and they went to the city council that very night. They were voting on it that night. The other thing that we did was we looked at having the parcels included in the expanded designation. And that was well before the Minnesota tax credits were even in place. We did that because we knew that whoever the developer would be that would come forward would want to use those federal tax credits. And so we've been working behind the scenes for a long time. That expanded designation took place in 2016, and Friends of the Kirkbride, of course, supported that. The Friends have done many community presentations like Maxine has talked about. We have gone down to the cities and had booths at the Architectural Institute Association Conference every year in November. We put together marketing packets. We advertise it on Facebook. Friends of the Kirkbride, along with the Historical Society, put together a marketing book that the city couldn't do. We approached the city to put together a document that could be included with marketing for tax incentives, federal tax credits, 20%, Minnesota tax credits, 20%, New Market tax credits, 39% of the project. There's others out there. You know, we have to get people aware of this. So then the city comes and says, we've done everything we can, so let's put together a flyer and give this to the bonding committee. Right. Deconstruction, all of the buildings on the campus, and then they tell us, we need compromise. I'm sorry, but they're trying to sell us the White House. Somehow they say deconstruction it just seems to be more palatable than demolition. The entire time that we have marketed this building, it was either a dual track, well, that didn't sound so good, dual track of demolition, so now we've gone to deconstruction. You look at another campus in Minnesota, the Midwest Technology Campus. 100 acres, 500,000 square feet. 2 people came together with backgrounds in bioscience. You have agriculture, you have bioscience, you have technology. They have 33 businesses co-located on that campus. They have 670 full-time jobs on that campus right now. I'm talking with some people on that campus, the average salary is $75,000. That's a $50 million impact. Do we turn that 3 times in the community? Is that $150 million? Do we turn it 7 times? Is it $350 million? This is lost opportunity if we don't look at this. We've got people in this audience that have visited Traverse City. They've done it incrementally, in stages. We've got people that know about the Richardson Olmsted complex in Buffalo, New York. We had Barbara Campaign come to one of our conferences in Fergus and sent a letter to the city that we had time on our side. This building was not going to fall down. So our city says that it has done everything that it's could, and that we should just accept this deconstruction. We have never advertised this in parcels. We have had developers ask us to look at reciprocal parking arrangement on the campus, shared walls, multi-use plotting. That hasn't happened. City Council didn't do that. The HPC was asked to bring that forward to the council. I don't know if it ever made it. So with that, people ask what the Friends of the Kirkbride have been doing for the last 13 years. We've been working behind the scenes. We have hired legal counsel, and we are going to actively pursue the next steps forward. John? Or Scott?
Thanks, Lori. I think that it's clear that Lori personifies the P for passion that Maxine was talking about. Now, we're going to be taking a break here shortly, and we're going to give you an opportunity to stand up and get a drink of water and move around. That's going to be a short one, and after that, we want to come back together and get back to business, but we're going to have that here just shortly. But we'd like to at least offer an opportunity for maybe there might be a couple of questions that have come up. That we can try and maybe answer a couple of questions before we take a break. So if there is somebody that would like to call out a question, now's the opportunity. We can maybe take a couple of questions after the break as well, but if there's one or two that would like to phrase a question now, we'd like to maybe hear. I've got a couple of hands up. How about the fellow in the back there? I think you raised your hand first, so if you could call it out, I'll try to repeat it.
Question I've got is, how many of you people would actually go down to that river walk this time of the night, or Lake Ellis right now, and actually walk around that safely?
Okay, his question for those of you was, how many of you would walk the river walk or around Lake Alice at this time of night and feel safe doing it? And apparently, yeah,
I'd feel safe.
I can understand your concern for that, and frankly, that's outside of our purview. Okay. I'm not gonna really be able to address that question. The Friends of the Kirkbride doesn't really reach down as far as the river walk, so. How about you up in front here, sir?
Okay, I got a question, just look at some strategic planning, and the question, for the city council, and I don't think they're just talking money, it's gonna cost us money. Well, how many times can you mow the grass for $8 million? But anyway, all seriousness, for the city council and for this group, because strategic planning is the same whether it's national defense or for community urban development. The process is the same. And the fundamental question is, what after? So Maxine had a beautiful statement at the end about the man who demolished the one out east. And
It's just a place like any other place.
It's a place like any other place. So the city demolishes this because they don't want to spend, what, $50,000 a year on maintenance and upkeep. And so what do they got afterwards? Grass. Well, there's 10,000 other communities in this country that have grass. But we got this, and there's opportunities here. So the question is, what after? Now, Maxine gave a long list, and a lot of us have had ideas and this kind of thing about, but the question for this group is, what after? And
Okay.
so we preserve it, or we preserve all of it, or we let it go to just the 2 towers and the castle, or whatever, but consider what after.
Very good.
And then the other one is.
Can I answer that question, then I'll let you finish, so that we don't get too far away. Let me answer your question as far as what after. One of the factors that Lori and Maxine both referred to was the idea of tax credits, and how that's a really significant part for any developer to come in and do anything on the grounds. As long as the whole horseshoe is intact, then the designation applies as a historic property and the tax credits are available. And if you're talking a many, many $million project, 40% of many millions is many millions of dollars, and that's what evens it between doing a restoration of an existing building versus building new. So if you're a contractor looking, well, I can build X number of square feet of housing over here for X dollars, versus rehab something existing, it's more. But once you take into account the tax credits, that's where it evens it out. So hopefully that answers that part of your question.
Well, that's a good point in the process, I understand that.
Okay.
And then finally is, really fundamentally, you have to have a plan and then sell the plan.
Right.
And if I was the man in charge of this whole city and town and whatever, I would probably select somebody like Erin over there at the library, who did her library project the right way.
Okay.
She went and got an architectural firm. And they sat and they went down, they had their community things, they came up with all their ideas. Lori, was, within the Brandon program with me, and Erin was.
Mm-hmm.
But she did it the right way, because you got that professionals group, you build a plan, and you have your community meetings, and you get some ideas, you throw them all together, now you get some professionals to develop little models, little this and
Right.
that, and you pick 1 or 2 really neat ones. Let's all join and pick this one. Now you can go get it developed.
Right.
Build this. But just to go and say, oh, a developer come and make something else, he doesn't know.
Well, for those of you in the back who maybe couldn't hear him, the point that he's making is that In effect, we need to begin with the end in mind. We need to have a plan for what's next. What's next? How do we proceed to an end that has a defined picture to it? And I stole that phrase, begin with the end in mind, from Rod Speedo, by the way. That wasn't one of my originals. He was using that to describe some efforts being done for the riverfront development. I think the same thing can apply here, and I think I can answer your question in that way, that begin with the end in mind. And I think up to this point, the community and the Friends of the Kirkbride, to a degree, have expected the city to do what you've described, to find the architects and the planners to put that plan together. And for whatever reason, the city has chosen to not do that and has taken a different approach with the RFPs that have been put out that haven't been successful. I think that following what you're suggesting holds great merit and would definitely be worth doing. I really do. And I think that we would agree on that. We've got another hand up over here.
I was gonna say, wasn't part of that first $5 million the city was given, part of that supposed to be used for mothballing it, which was a big term probably a couple years ago? And now for me, considering mothballing, wouldn't that be getting rid of some of this mold that they're all scared about? Controlling that, and also some of the shingles that are blowing off on what's attached, fixing the roof, even though it's a concrete roof, but I mean, how long can that hold up if you get moisture into it? What's been done with that mothballing? I mean, is that a term that's just going aside now?
Well, no, I think mothballing is a term that we would still use.
Yeah.
And last year, there were some efforts made. The city did use some of the money that they had last year, not only on the water and sewer that was mentioned earlier, but there was some roof repair done last year. I think there might have been some masonry work as well, tuck pointing and things with the gutters and the drainage and things like that. And so there has been some effort made by the city in that regard. When they were asked about putting the new shingles on West Attached, as you suggested, they decided not to do that, even though the cost was relatively low, less than $20,000. And they decided to not spend that 10-some thousand, figuring that that building was going to be demolished at some point. Does that answer your question as far as the mothballing? Okay. And again, they do have money available still, even after this phase one, that continuing to mothball more of it could be done. Yes.
From my understanding, the city council is still speaking as if they will continue to market the property through their demolition request because there is a chance that it will be denied from the state.
Okay.
How can a developer have good faith that the city isn't going to change their mind? Why would a developer even want to explore the property if the city keeps
The question for those of you in the back is that why would a developer be interested in any action here while the city is continuing to pursue demolition? And that's a very good question.
And then my follow-up is, as H1C's resident, so I'm part of our whole group supporting the, funding of
We
the
appreciate your
ground.
tax dollars going into the state to help fund all
Yeah.
that work as well.
And, you guys reciprocate and help fund stadiums that you don't always visit. But the thing with stadiums is, we know what the end goal is. We know what the economic driver is. We know what the return on investment for those bonding dollars are. Your city is asking me to contribute to $8.9 million to give you a vacant field. That is not going to give me a return on investment. You're going to have to end up offering some kind of tax incentive for the vacant land to be redeveloped. Lori and I spoke, and I know that the city is exploring giving tax abatement to your industrial park, already to the tune of something, I think you said $500,000 to $700,000 in tax abatement. You're gonna have to do the same thing here. How long are we gonna have to wait for a return on investment with that demolition money? And I know you don't know the answer, but that is something we need to push the council on.
But I would make one comment. At the beginning of your statement, you said that the city has said that they would continue to market the property while pursuing demolition. And that's not technically accurate because they're not marketing it.
Well, yes.
They have said they'd be willing to look at any proposals. But being willing to look at what falls on you is different than going out and looking for something. And so I want to just make that clear. But again, appreciate your perspective coming from the cities and And you can use some of our tax dollars too, I guess.
Scott?
Okay,
We
we're gonna take, we've hit
Can
an
I just-
hour, so we're gonna take a break. I know there was one hand, a couple of hands in the back, so hopefully you'll hang on to those questions and we'll go right to them when we come back from our break, but we want to have a chance.
Just before you stand up, those who are filming live for Facebook, could you turn your camera so the group can see the crowd here? And while you're doing that, I wanted to ask, how many former employees do we have here tonight that worked at the RTC? Are there any? One, two, there's a couple? All right. All right, thank you for your interest and for being here as well, and for being a part of that community up there on the hill for a long time. Yes, Lois?
One quick question. Scott said there were two hands up. One of the things that's very helpful in circumstances like this is when there's a sense of momentum in the conversation. And yes, we do need to stand, but I'm a little nervous about the sense of momentum being different.
Yeah, keep going, I
All
think.
right.
Keep
You wanna
going.
keep going?
Yes, yes.
We do want to be respectful
Yeah.
for those that need a bathroom break too, so if you want to keep going, let's take two more questions. And then we're anticipating a very short break, so we can keep the momentum going. And because we have some more business to attend to tonight. So let's take two more questions and then a quick break, come back, and we're gonna get back to work. Yes?
My question is, when we're going to do this, continue to save the Kirkbride as our desire. Now, I think we understand that the administration building doesn't fit, it doesn't fall into the
Right.
Right.
the big part, and the burner doesn't.
Yep.
So when I want to fight to save the Kirkbride, I could say, all right, city, those things you can take down because they aren't, but that's it. This is the Kirkbride we want to save. We mostly want to save.
The horseshoe.
The horseshoe.
And we know what it is we want to save, not just
Right.
this.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we make that decision.
Yes, let's be clear about that. That's really kind of the position of the folks you're looking at here as well. Some would say let's save the whole thing, but we're kind of choosing our battles at this point. And it's Desta, right? Yeah, what Desta said, for those who couldn't hear in the back, is that we can come to some agreement that the addition admin building that was put on in the 70s, 60s,
The flat roof.
with the flat roof and the things that they're already taken down right now, including the tunnels and the gazebos, that we're kind of not battling that. And I
But
think
we can.
we can.
Yeah,
We can, but we're really trying to focus our energy in the horseshoe, in the tower, and say, you know what, that's where we're gonna put our efforts at this point. So, and you may feel different about that, but we're hoping that tonight we can have some sense of unity and say, you know what, we maybe lost that piece, but we're not gonna lose the big battle, right? The
May I
rest of
say
it.
It
one?
becomes better if we're also saying, okay, we understand that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I want to make it very clear that the Kirkbride building is the entire U-shaped building.
Right.
I've had many people say, oh, they're gonna save the Kirkbride, but meaning the tower building. The entire building is the Kirkbride, not just the tower.
Right, it needs its wings.
So you all know that.
Thanks. There was one more hand? Oop.
Well, there's quite a few.
there's quite a, yeah.
Okay. And I just knocked this off. Go ahead. Who was the other one that, yep?
Who are you very funny to?
The gentleman in the checkered shirt. Yep.
In light of the Kirkbride building now, I've been doing some research and am I right? It is the largest one in the United States of America,
Yes.
in our
Correct.
community of Fergus Falls.
Yes.
Guess what, people? We have a gem here.
Right.
Let's fight to keep it there.
Comment was the largest existing Kirkbride in the US right now, and that is correct. Yes.
Why is the city in such a big hurry to get rid of it right now? And some of the information that I heard today, this is the first time I've come to the meeting, I would like to hear in terms of things like being put in the paper, and, you know, get out there for people. We keep needing to hear this stuff.
That's why we're here
We're
tonight.
coming, we're coming,
Good.
What?
we're coming.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah.
Thank
There
you.
was people in the back too. too.
forget a break and just, if
Yeah.
they need
Okay.
to
Yeah.
step out,
If you
they
need to
can
go,
step
just-
out.
All right, do you want to come to
Keep
agreement
going.
on that? If you need a bathroom break or drink water, you just get up and go? You want to do that?
Yes.
Keep rolling?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's do that. Scott, do you want to continue with some questions? Yep.
There was another question in the back, I'm afraid I didn't see where.
I just, I'm part of the group for preservation work, and I just wanted to read a statement and put out, by actually
needs a mic.
Kirkbride, Dr. Robert Kirkbride. He's our spokesperson, and, he's been involved in tons of this sort of architectural work, but he had this, I think this is something to consider, so he says, of course, if you do want to talk dollars and common sense, then by all means, compare the true cost of demolishing Greystone Psychiatric Hospital in 2015 of $34+ million, with a silly estimate of ours, $8.9 million for demolishing Fergus Falls, a structure of almost the same size, built from concrete masonry that has cured over 100 Minnesota winters. He says, taxpayers beware. For their respective tax dollars, Buffalo now has a tourist gem, while citizens of Morris Plains, New Jersey are looking at an empty field. Visioning the future in a responsible way is like cooking, not go forward without first going back and bringing the essential ingredients forward. In the case of Fergus Falls, the ingredients are a stunning complex of buildings that are enlaced in a rich and complex national and human history. What we make of this is what we make of ourselves.
Community page, isn't it?
So I
But she's reading, I think that doesn't get. That was a letter by Robert Kirkbride, or a posting that was made by Robert Kirkbride, correct?
Yes.
And I believe that that is posted on the Friends of the Kirkbride community Facebook page. And so if those of you who maybe couldn't hear it completely, if you go to the Friends of the Kirkbride Facebook page, the community page, you will find you keep scrolling through all the comments, you'll find it in there. And there's comments from people all over the country, as well as from all over Minnesota and Fergus Falls on that Friends of the Kirkbride page. We got a question down here down here in front.
There, Robert Raymond intervening had mentioned in his letter, I think it was point number 4, about the envisioning group to meet and hash over ideas of what people envision for that area, for the Kirkbride.
Yeah.
Has that ever been attempted with the city council? Have they ever been open to, having a real solid, envisioning party, and I don't know if you call it party, but meeting with, business people, people that would know a lot of what's the ins and outs of the place and how it could be invested, how it couldn't, but then also just really big thinkers, big dreamers, but people that know what they're talking about. Has it ever happened? Has there ever 2004.
In 2005, before the city got the property from the state, there was a collaborative effort to put together a master plan that the state funded and was really responsible for putting together. That printed document is as big as an old phone book, and it had 3 different plans that were developed for including all different kinds of things of what might end up on this property. They looked at putting in a new school. The library was proposed to go up in this part of the town. The ice arena was proposed in one of those plans. All of those suggestions have been dealt with by the city elsewhere, and that whole master plan now, frankly, is obsolete. And since that was done, there hasn't been any kind of effort along the same lines like what you're describing. Not for this property. They've done similar kind of work for the riverfront within the last year, but they haven't done anything like that up here. We got 2 hands back there in the middle. How about you? Yes.
I was just curious now with that, was that original plan that the state and the group did in 2005, did that include getting rid of the building to put those things in place?
As a matter of fact, that initial plan, each of those 3 plans had large amounts of demolition involved. One of the 3 plans kept only the central tower building, the rest was all demolished. The other two plans had large other sections. The 3 towers remained in one of the plans, 2 of the towers and another building remained in another of the plans. So it seemed even from that point that demolition was just assumed is even a part of the planning way back in 2005.
And it didn't have the tax credits available then either.
Yeah, the playing surface has changed since then. As Lori mentioned, their tax credits didn't exist then. And so there were some other things in play as to just how it would be made possible. But the situation's different now. It's better now. The opportunities are there.
I just want to add to that, like, I appreciate what you guys have done since then, because it's no standing. I'm newer to the community. I came after that, and I think it would be so sad. And I mean, I know we're all here for the same reason, but I'm not connected to it in any way. I didn't go there. I didn't live here. I didn't grow up here, and I think it would be a shame to lose it. And I live here now.
I appreciate your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. The development of Act has had its end up here for quite a while, so I'll try to get to you in the back.
Is there going to be a period for comments? 'Cause I have some things I'd like to say about it. I'm a research historian. I specialize in historic preservation. I'm from St. Paul. I do tons of work in history preservation. I would hope that I could add a little bit to the group at some point. I know it's a question. That's what I want to ask.
Sure.
Is there going to be a period?
We hadn't really intended beyond this kind of a setting to hear what you've got to say. Maybe you can phrase a question or two and make that happen.
I mean, I guess I work.
Come on up and use the mic.
All right. While he's on his way up, there was someone over here. Go ahead. Go ahead and answer.
I was just wondering if they're taking the tunnels out now, is that gonna take care of the mold problem so they can start the tours up again?
The question is whether removing the tunnels now in this first phase is going to take care of the mold problem, and so that the tours could be again started up. My understanding is that one of the reasons why they're taking the tunnels out is to try and control the moisture from getting into the buildings that contribute to the mold. Just taking the tunnels out won't take the mold out, so there would still have to be work done to do that. I don't know that that's a magic bullet, though. When the roof leaks on 27 and when there's other places that moisture can get in, there's probably more that needs to be done as far as keeping ventilation in the building to manage the mold. And so there's other things that can be done beyond just taking the tunnels out. So we'll give you an opportunity if you can just take a couple minutes. And your name is?
Chris Keith.
Chris?
Nice to meet you. Finally. So I live in the cities, and I work in history and preservation. I live in the oldest mansion on Summit Avenue, which is the most well-preserved Victorian mansion boulevard in the country. So I'm totally immersed in this stuff, and this is what I do. I go around and preserve buildings. And most people think us historians, oh, we want to save the world, you know. We don't. We're very realistic, and I don't get into projects that I don't think are realistic. I see one of 73 Kirkbride buildings built in the country between 1848 and 1912. One of 73 communities that had a Kirkbride building between those years. And one of the only ones that is still intact. You have to see how rare of a piece of Victorian architecture this is. I try and add context in my work. I'm working on a documentary on the historic Hill District right now. I'm working on a book on Summit Avenue, which will be published by Christmas of 2020. But anyways, this building is so important to the history of our state. And if I didn't think it was economically viable to do this, I wouldn't be here today. If I thought it was a loss and it was going to be too much of a battle. But I know developers personally who've done $100 million+ preservation projects. I know what it takes, and I've been at these fights, and I just want to add that this is rare. There's nothing like this in the country. This is one of a kind in your city. This makes Fergus Falls, in my opinion. I'll be sitting there. I'll hear someone mention Fergus Falls, my ears pop up immediately. I'm like, the Kirkbride. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don't let him get out of here.
Take him home.
We're going to need your phone number.
I think I've got it.
Okay. Oh, you can contact. All right.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we lay out, what can be done, what we can do. And earlier tonight, one of the questions that we had was regarding a letter that Ray Minervini had written that has been posted online as well. And I want to read that letter so that you can hear his approach to this. And then it wraps up with some of the answers to that question. What can we do? What might we do? And then after this, we'll maybe have another question or two, and then we're going to start putting together our task forces and talking about that. But, okay, this is Ray talking, not me.
He made it, he developed the Kirkbride, right?
Right, Ray was,
Yeah,
there's another
Traverse
Kirkbride
City.
facility in Traverse City, Michigan, and it has been now substantially redeveloped and is an economic powerhouse over there. And you can go online and see lots of great things about it.
Can I just give you a stat on that property?
Okay, a stat.
At 40% complete with his rehabilitation, he is contributing $400,000 in property taxes a year to the city.
$400,000 in property taxes a year from this property to the community, and the project is only 40% complete.
Yes, he has a waiting list for all of his apartments and for his retail spaces.
Okay, with waiting lists on the retail spaces and apartments.
This has not impacted the main street of Traverse City. The main street of Traverse City complements what he is doing. His tenants of commerce, they can grow and come into the main street. Main street prices keep some of those tenants out. His building is an economic incubator for those businesses.
Right.
Okay.
That is how I see you able to bridge the gap that the city is presenting. Knowing that this is a way to grow the businesses to go into the riverfront development that they want to do.
Her comments went on to describe how the development in Traverse City hasn't taken away from the storefront downtown, but has worked as a complement and is actually an incubator for business in the area. So this is Ray speaking from, he titles it Letter from a Living Kirkbride Asylum. Dear community of Fergus Falls, you stand at a crossroads. You own a unique and historic treasure, and you are watching your city government take step after step to light a fuse to blow it all up. You own a treasure, the Regional Treatment Center's Kirkbride building. Although they may be well-intended and guided by fiscal conservatism, the current city council's decision to begin destruction of the Kirkbride is evidence that they are making decisions in the dark. Other communities have solved riddles like the RTC. Your city leaders are seeking millions of public dollars to destroy the most special asset of your city. Before the leaders of Fergus Falls burn millions of public tax dollars, without any return, all reasonable efforts to find one or several RTC redevelopers must be exhausted. Based upon my look at the record, no such good faith effort has been made. The Kirkbride is the single dominant historic landmark of Fergus Falls. It is some 600,000 square feet. It sits on park-like property and is owned by the city. Constructed with massive walls of brick, concrete, and steel, with high ceilings, and the state-of-the-art heating and cooling at that time when it was built, state-of-the-art heating and cooling, it was literally built by the state of Minnesota to last for hundreds of years. There is no magic formula for reuse I can prescribe, because exactly what worked in Traverse City may not work in Fergus Falls, but there are many things common to us as human beings. For example, most of us are attracted to grand historic buildings surrounded by trees and green space. Most of us like inviting places where people gather, smile, think, whether it's an airy coffee shop, a music hall, or a fun restaurant. Many of us like workplaces with high ceilings and natural light and places nearby for lunch and break time. Most of us like living spaces that have solid masonry construction, high ceilings, wide corridors with views of open, broad lawns, where on Sundays bands play and families have a picnic. It's so nice. But it's possible. Based on our Kirkbride and others, if you make an authentic neighborhood, people will pay money to live, work, shop, dine, and tour the place, even in Fergus Falls. It has qualities people desire. It's fair to say there's value in the Kirkbride. Let's say it sits as it sits, it's worth $15 per square foot of floor area. That equals $9 million without factoring in the remarkable structural and historic characteristics of the building. For rough estimating purposes on a project like this, every dollar in cash equity can be leveraged for about $3 more for reconstruction, which means a viable reuse can conservatively finance about $27 million in redevelopment financing. If the project can secure incentives like cleanup grants, blight elimination grants, historic tax credits, and the like, these can also be counted as equity in the project phases and improve the feasibility and risk equation for lenders. In short, there is something of value here. Don't light that fuse yet. Some steps to halt the destruction of a landmark and make your city richer. He's got 7 points to make. Number 1, do not destroy your history and identity. Capitalize on it. Number 2, use your $1.9 million to mothball the structure. Keep the building dry. This will buy you time at very little expense. Now, this is, that bid's already been out there, but a portion of that, or maybe some of the remaining money could still be used that way. Number 3, secure a toolbox of redevelopment incentives to make the project attractive to a private developer or developers, including going to St. Paul to seek money for hazardous material abatement and redevelopment. Each dollar spent on preservation will be multiplied for public benefit over time. The state knows that. The RTC was something the whole state built. Leverage that. Consider what local incentives you can apply, such as property tax abatements. Show developers you are committed to this and willing to put skin in the project. Okay, number 4, hold visioning sessions in the community led by people with both vision and business experience, knowing that the end users must pay for themselves. And that was your question. Number 5, break the Kirkbride up into bite-sized project phases, perhaps with build firewalls. Make the project digestible to developers and lenders alike. People will live next to unrenovated building phases if they know there is a commitment to finish. Put out a national RFP to developers. This is number 6. And do it in good faith and proceed in good faith. And number 7, find a good developer and then give the Kirkbride to them. Of course, you must include reasonable contingencies for performance, the types of use for public access, etc. But give the castle away rather than pay millions to destroy your landmark and your identity and all of the inherited value that resides in it. So he sums it up this way. He says, I encourage you to seize the opportunity to invest in what makes you special rather than pay many times over to destroy it. Blow out that match. Other communities have done it, and so can you. Ultimately, embracing your past may be the only way for Fergus Falls to have a vibrant and sustainable future. Okay, we've got one question, and then we're really going to have to go to our task forces.
So I had a conversation with Ray just prior to writing that letter, and he told me that they make on the 60% that's not developed, $400,000 a year on tours.
$400,000 a year earned on tours, in addition to all the other taxes that they're paying to the city and everything else.
You can mow the lawn a lot.
I guess so, yeah.
Traverse City is only 14,000 people, and we're 13,000.
The size of the city is similar, but it's a more metropolitan region, you might say, but that comparison can be made.
We have the whole lakes area. And
It'll make us a destination.
I don't think, I mean, the point one of the points that we tried to make is how it becomes a destination for far beyond Ottawa County and this lakes area. So,
well, I mean, even you know, the one point was they made $400,000 or something like that, or 400 million, or 400,000, I guess. But even if you made only 1/4 of that, that sure beats grass.
Yeah.
I've got one question.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
It may be a strange question to ask, but do the walls or structure of the tunnels, are they weight-bearing so that it could destroy any of the floors above it?
The tunnels in question are...
It's a basement.
There's no buildings over the top of them.
Oh,
There's basement levels in the buildings that kind of connect to the tunnels and, you know, provide entrance and whatnot to the tunnels. But the tunnels that are being demolished are out in the open for the most part now.
Can
Yes.
we agree today in this group, the actual pieces of the building that we're all talking about, that we all agree on the ones that are, so that we're not,
Well, as has been said earlier tonight, when we talk about the Kirkbride, what we are talking about, and when I say we, the Friends of the Kirkbride, when we say the Kirkbride, we're talking about the whole horseshoe,
Yes.
including all 3 towers and everything that connects them together.
right.
That's the key, because if that horseshoe remains, the tax credits remain.
Right.
And the whole point of this is economics,
Okay.
okay?
Could you talk about this building that we're in? This was part of.
Yeah, this is
Yes,
part of the
yes.
campus, yeah.
Thank
Where
you.
the college sits, that used to be part of the farmland. Where the industrial park is, that was part of the campus. There's quite a lot of land around here that was all part of it.
Yeah, thank you. Veterans
And
Home.
this one was redeveloped pretty nicely, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Okay, one more rack in the back.
Just to clarify, when you're talking about horseshoe, does that include the part that's in the phase 2 deconstruction, as they call it? Part that's the site and
The parts in yellow here are phase 1, okay? And, oop, I went the wrong way. When the phases 2, 3, and 4, as they were proposed, they're the green, the blue, and the red. I'm afraid I couldn't hear
Is the
you.
red?
Oh, the red portion, that's where the gymnasium, the
That's in
cafeteria.
perfect shape.
Part of the horseshoe as that terminology.
Right. We haven't really said that. And as I understand it right now, it's considered a part of what the historic tax credits cover. But there could be some potential opportunity to address that. Right
In
now,
SHPO's eyes, that's part of the horseshoe.
it's,
SHPO's eyes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
In SHPO's eyes, that's part of the horseshoe.
According to SHPO, according to Tim, the red portion is part of the horseshoe and part of the Kirkbride that is included in that tax credit
Yeah.
incentive, yeah, okay. That's what I thought, I wasn't certain about that. Okay, John, I think we really gotta go to our.
Were you gonna say about a word about the back of the agenda? Scott?
Oh, I was.
Yes.
The back of your agenda are the contacts, is the contact information for the people that are key to this whole deal. There's the city council, naturally they're on the bottom, but then all of the other names are the senators and representatives that are going to be involved in making a decision about whether this $8.9 million gets approved for the state or not. The committees that meet have to agree to put it in the bonding bill before it goes before the full legislature. And these are the committee members. And so these are the people that need to hear from us about what we think of what they're being asked to do.
When is the deadline on it? Do you know when that goes?
Well, the legislature runs till May, and it has to end in May by law at midnight on a given, whatever day it is, 17th or 20th or whatever it is. Typically, the bonding bill is something that doesn't actually get put together until near the end. There's a lot of committee meetings, a lot of conversation over the next couple of months. But the actual vote to either put it in or not have it in the bonding bill likely won't happen until end of April into May, and then there'll be still a lot of unknowns until right down to the end.
When you say end of April into May, or?
Well, that's when the meetings will be happening to decide what goes in. The negotiations will start to really ramp up toward the end of April.
Well, if we want to let these people know, when do we?
You can start now.
Do it now. Do it now. Do it now.
You
Do
bet.
it now.
Keep going until the legislature closes.
End of May?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, one other thing I guess I wanted to point out, for a lot of you are not from Fergus Falls, and you wouldn't necessarily recognize some of the people that are sitting next to you. But in our crowd tonight, I'd like to thank the mayor and the city administrator and several of our council members for attending tonight. We appreciate them making the effort to come out and hear this. And knowing that to a certain degree, this might have been a hostile audience. I wasn't necessarily wanting to point them out for spitwads and the like. And so I'll leave it up to them to introduce themselves if they'd like to do that. But we're going to break now to setting up working with our task forces.
Lori's
We're
gonna.
not breaking, we're just changing.
We're staying, but we got to get into our groups. So
Changing our
Lori,
focus.
you gonna talk about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that we have retained legal counsel and are actively pursuing the next steps forward. So just wanted to get that on your radar screen, and we're looking for donations and fundraisers and all of those good things. So we can talk about that too when we break into our groups here. The other thing I wanted to mention too is there's copies of this outside for everybody. So on your way out the door, pick one of these up. So, okay, I think we'll break them.
Don't go anywhere.
You're gonna wanna decide what.
We've established there is no break.
No, yeah,
There's no
we're
break.
repositioning.
You're sitting on those hard chairs all night. It's like, don't you need to stand up? But okay, let me just say a word. You know, you turned me off, Lori.
Oh, no.
Let me just say a word about really, when we started organizing this event, it was to get like-minded people together and say, you know what, this is really a crucial time in this fight to save the Kirkbride. It is a crucial time, and a lot of the Friends of the Kirkbride have been working really hard for a long time, but it's time to expand that circle, right? It's time to expand it. And that's what we're doing here tonight, is to say we are like-minded people. In some ways, you know, the things that have been said, we're kind of preaching to the choir tonight, right? Because I think we're pretty much on the same page. You know, maybe there are bits and pieces to this that we might say, I'm not sure about that. But the big picture is that we want to save that horseshoe with the main tower and the two other towers. We want to see that left intact, because we believe it'll serve a purpose in this community, in this county once again, right? So that's what we're about tonight. We've identified four task forces that we think are probably the most critical things that we could be a part of at this point. There are probably others, right? There are probably other things that we can do. Scott mentioned on the back of your agenda, we really need to get the word out to the state that we oppose that request for money. So we need to send emails, make phone calls, and get other people on the same bandwagon. That's one thing we can do. The other thing is these task forces that are very intentional to say we need help with a few other things. I mentioned before, first one is raising some money. We anticipate that there's going to be a long, drawn-out legal battle to keep that building intact. And if you're ready for it, then we need help, okay? So what we're going to do is talk about fundraisers. It's too much work to try to do that in this kind of setting, right? So we're going to form a task force that'll say, with people that'll say, we'll take that on and we'll try a few things and we'll bring others as we progress in this. But we need some structure to this. So tonight what we're looking at is, this is kind of a grassroots effort again, to say we're trying to get organized and go forward with the next steps. So Aaron Alguire is over there, and Aaron, I'm going to give you this sheet. What we're going to do is, I'm going to send you to the back corner, okay? Erin is from Fargo. She lives in North Fargo, and she has been very actively involved in Friends of the Kirkbride. And I think it's so impressive that somebody from a distance would continue to work and work and work to help us save that building. So thank you, Erin. Lori Mullen is going to kind of head up the group about spreading the word. And Lori is going to be working with, if there needs to be door knocking around town, if there needs to be some communications with media. There are signs for yards. Wouldn't it be neat to go around Fergus Falls and see sign after sign after sign, save the Kirkbride? Businesses and residences both. So if you know people, we're trying to expand the circle. So Lori's gonna go to the other corner. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
And
What is Erin taking care of?
Erin is working on fundraising, so she's got a sign, fundraising. Lori's got a sign that says spreading the word, okay? Scott, why don't we have you down there at that chair, right down there, and that is the Kirkbride Review. So what we're looking at, things are happening right now. There's a lot of moving parts to this. And one of them is we want to continue the momentum. Lois, you talked about momentum tonight. We want to continue that, right? Not only in conversation, but in action. And Scott's got a vision about a Kirkbride Review that we could have yet this spring, where we bring all kinds of people together, larger than this group, where we widen the circle again and say this building matters, and let's have a celebration around it, where we've got some entertainment. There can be some education. It can be a part of a fundraiser, selling items, building that energy still. So Scott's going to be up here at that chair. If you want to be a part of that, what we're going to do in a moment is just say we're going to dismiss folks, and you go to those folks who have the signs, and they're going to write down your name and your contact information, and that's going to be the task force working on those items. Okay, a fourth one is the City Council appeal. Sean, do you want to be right up here? And I'm going to grab a pen. Excuse me, Maxine. The City Council appeal. We want to, in the past we've been trying to get the word out on Facebook saying we need people at the City Council meetings where you come and show your support. This group is going to work a little more intentionally on that effort, saying, so it might be Sean calling for the month of March, calling some volunteers, friends of the Kirkbride, saying, can you come and speak to the City Council meeting next Monday night, or a couple weeks from now. And then somebody else who volunteers with this task force may take the month of April, or maybe 2 months, and call people, lining up different voices to come and speak to the City Council and say that building matters and we want to be heard, right? They may be involved in some other things, talking to the different people in the different wards around the city of Fergus Falls, trying to get, again, some more grassroots groups together saying, we need to sit and talk to our representative that's on council and let them know that this is important, and a more intentional kind of structured conversation approaching the City Council people and saying, we want you to even withdraw the request, right? Or work harder at publicizing the sale of the building, right? We want to re-enter that conversation and get the word out nationally that this is an opportunity for somebody to come and develop this building. Yes?
Is that group going to work on contacting state officials too, or are they just going to be council-based?
We had talked about just City Council, but we're kind of creating this as we go, so what do you think? Say again?
Government entities.
Government entities, maybe a better way to phrase it. Everybody okay with that? Yeah. Okay, so city and state. Okay. You okay with that, Sean?
Yeah.
Okay, city and state, thank you, that's a very good point. Yes, Laurie?
I think too, of spreading the word that we can look at community visioning sessions.
Yes.
Okay, community visioning sessions involved with that group spreading the word as well. Any other reactions to our groups, Holly?
I just want to add, and I know, the New Jersey guy, they were in court as literally, boom, coming down, hey, we're doing this, so don't just sit on your laurels, they've got a lawyer, and we have got time, it's like, you gotta keep pushing it through, because they tore it down as they were in the courtroom.
Yes, wow. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Holly. So just because we're engaging legal counsel, that doesn't mean that this is a done deal, right? This is a battle we need to continue at every front. Yes?
I just want to make a
Yeah, please. Will you stand up, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from in New Jersey.
My name is Anthony Stramagli. I'm from Florham Park, New Jersey. I lived about 20 minutes away from Greystone, which is the Kirkbride they tore down about 3 years ago that was just mentioned. The one thing I want to mention is when writing to your state representatives, write letters, paper letters, physical letters. Yeah, because they have to acknowledge those. So emails they can just ignore. The letters, if you can write them and then make them certified letters or registered, so make sure they get. And also,
Can I just repeat that so everybody hears, including the folks that are online, and then I'll let you continue, okay? The comment was to write physical letters to the state legislators, so they have to open it up and respond, okay? Continue.
And to make that even better, make them registered letters so they have to.
And to ensure that they get their registered letters, okay?
And I know you have the petition. I think it's been mentioned before, but if you have printed petitions from online and signed, make sure that they're entered into public record with the state also, so that they're aware that, because they don't always check.
Right, we have an online petition right now, and you're suggesting that we register with the state.
Print it and present it to, I'm not sure how to approach it in Minnesota, but, you know, we have, in New Jersey, you can go before, or, state officials, or town officials, whatever, and then present them with petitions, and have them enter it into public record, so that it's on file.
The petition entered in public record. Yes, Tim?
Just take it to the courthouse and, where do you register anything?
Okay. Anthony, any other comments that are helpful for us tonight?
Yeah, as was mentioned, that we had legal counsel. You have to keep fighting, and you just can't let up. You can't show them that things are slowing down, that things are getting weaker. At the state level, it's much harder, but I think you have a better chance here at the city level. It's a lot closer. It's harder to hide.
Right.
Yeah.
At the state level, they were, you pretty much, you didn't, at least in New Jersey, it was very hard to figure out what they were saying, especially with Governor Christie. He's got bridges to sell.
Thank you. I think we need to show appreciation for you coming from New Jersey. Thanks. Holly, you were going to say something else?
Just to add on to what he's saying, these are numbers from that project, and this was written up by another architect that's in our group. He's just bringing to light that, the demolition of the RTC is supposedly just under $9 million. That's 5 times less than the demolition of Greystone. Greystone was smaller, I believe had a wood frame flooring as opposed to concrete slabs of the RTC. He said, my educated opinion is the real cost of demolition will be shy of $50 million. So what do you want to spend your money on?
Thank you.
I disagree with that comment, and the reason is that Landers got the bid, and Landers would be also the party that took down Onward Chain. And that was about the same, they did it for $4 million. So, we're gonna haul it to our landfill. I think it'll be right at the $9 million.
Well, the point is, it's going to cost a lot of money, and we don't even want to talk about that, right? We need to acknowledge that that's a possibility, and that's why we're here tonight. So, thank you both, and whatever the cost is, we don't want to see that happening.
No.
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to introduce myself.
Please.
My name is Naomi Felicia. I have a cold right now, I'm trying to get over it. My name is Naomi Felicia. I work for Springboard for the Arts, and I would like to tell you about a program that is already happening up here on campus. So we have a partnership with the Washington. In March of this month is going to be 3 years that we have had a residency program up here on the campus of the Kirkbride, where we have had over 63 artists who have lived up here on this campus, who have created artwork in our community, who have partnered with the Cabot Gallery. Center for the Arts, Lake Region Arts Council, also with Curry Wetlands. We have had all these partnerships with these other organizations and communities here in Fergus that have already been put into place. These artists have come here to stay in our community anywhere from 2 to 12 weeks. These are artists from all over the United States. In the program with Kindred at the Kirkbride, I also take the applications where artists are applying for our call right now, which ends March 7th. I am getting international recognition for our program. There are artists who want to come here and live in our community. When they do come here and visit and live in our community, they have their families, their spouses, they come and stay for the weekend or for a week. They go out to the restaurants. They stay at the hotels. Not only that, when we give them project support money for them to come into our community, they are doing projects within the community that is creating also revenue for these projects to be done and to take place. So if there's something that you want to support, this program has already been in existence for 3 years. We have meet and greets down at our office at Springboard for the Arts, where you can come and meet these artists. You can invite them to your homes, because the artists that have come in already are already doing collaboration work together nationwide and talking about our community. And the article that you showed in the beginning, that was from the Wall Street Journal, that is because of the residency program that has already existed here in Fergusville. And Michelle Anderson, who is our program director, is the reason why that program is here. And she would love to hear from you and to know and get support from the community too. And many of you have come to our meet and greets. But the thing is that there is already a program set up that is supporting the campus and the Kirkbride and showing that something can work. So
Great example. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you. Okay, I think there's much more that could be said. We need to be respectful of the space here. We have free use of this space, but they asked us to be done at 9 o'clock. So that's why we're kind of keeping things moving. We're going to break up now, or truly break up now. If there's a way you'd like to volunteer and help out with Friends of the Kirkbride, go to those stations and give your contact information, and we'll keep the ball rolling. Thank you for coming this evening. Thanks, everyone.